Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Top Hat Chat live with myself, Street, the Top Hat Gaming Man and Orb. Tonight on the channel we are going to be discussing whether or not the Zelda series is overrated.
Indeed, that is exactly what we are going to be discussing on this channel. Now we are finally live.
Perfect. Right, okay, so we're all good. The Zelda series, I mean, it goes back to Zelda, the very first Zelda on the NES.
Yes.
Which I suppose would be the perfect place to start.
Yes.
That is a game that gets a lot of hype.
It does get a lot of hype. Although
I've played a bit. I know you've played a lot. What are your experience of the early Zelda games?
So I remember completing the first Zelda when I was a wee boy.
Okay.
Didn't play much of 2 for the NES ones.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously played and loved Link to the Past on SNES. And then obviously,
Yeah, and then we'll get to the later ones a bit
Yeah.
later.
as a child who was born way back in 1986, I remember Zelda certainly being around in the United Kingdom. But
Yeah.
it was actually famous for the rather charming animated series rather than the game. That's why people generally knew about it.
Yeah,
in the
there
UK.
was an animated series. I never remember watching it.
Yeah, it was amazing. It had great catchphrases. Like Link was really lecherous in it, and he would regularly try and chat up the princess, and she would say, "No, I'm not interested." And he'd go, "Excuse me, princess," and that was his catchphrase.
That sounds very 80s.
It was.
Is it anything like the Zelda CDI games?
Yes, it's very similar.
So they're
I suppose.
not. So it's not a good series.
It reflects what Zelda really is, rather than this modern take on Zelda.
Okay.
Zelda should be radical. It's from the 80s.
He does. He does like boogie board on a shield in Breath of the Wild. That's quite radical.
Yeah.
And he has a tablet.
He does have a tablet also. That is.
He's a tablet bro.
Yeah.
Yeah. Zelda, he is certainly one of my favourite Nintendo characters. I must say that.
Stop saying things to upset people.
When you teach phonics all the time, hearing people use a TH instead of an F is
It was more the
amazingly
fact that he
irritating.
referred to the lead character in the Zelda series as
With a different
Zelda
pronoun.
rather than Link.
Oh, you see, I even blocked that out because I was so infuriated about the fact that he used a TH instead of an F for
But yeah,
favourite.
In regards to the
Favourite.
games, I never even heard of the 2 games on the NES until I was 16 or 17 years old. I just made the assumption that it started with Link to the Past on the Super Nintendo because that was the game I was familiar with, and other people I knew had played and completed. I discovered the other 2 Zelda games at a local boot sale, which I picked up for 50p each.
Yeah. See, the
Nice.
second one was, notoriously slated.
I love the second one now.
I mean,
I
the
love
thing
it.
is that you would.
Why?
Right? Because you do things like this.
Because I do things like this. People love Wonder Boy 3, don't they? The Dragon's Trap.
Yeah,
People
that's
love
true.
that game.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same style game. People are just a little bit stuck in their ways, and they like every single Zelda game, what's in 2D, to be played from a top-down perspective. They don't like change. They're afraid of it.
I can understand. That's the thing. Like, what I'm saying is like, you would say that. You would say that that is your preferred Zelda out of the 2. I tend to agree with you.
Yeah, because the first one is, they're both quite cryptic, equally cryptic, I would say. And the second one sometimes gets slated for being cryptic, but the first one is equally cryptic. And I'd say the first one is like a watered down crap version of Link to the Past, whereas Zelda 2 stands its own ground, and they've not made a Zelda game like it ever since. So Zelda 2 to me has a lot more worth than the first one. So Zelda 2 is underrated, where the first game is extremely overrated.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas, yeah, I think that's fair. So we've got the first 2 games
Yes.
out there. Easy peasy. We're going to miss some because that is the nature
There's
of
too
what
many.
we do.
There's too many.
So let's flick to the next one. The next one.
So
would have
Link to the
been
Past,
A
on
Link to
the
the
Super
Past.
Nintendo.
A Link to the Past is another one of those games which is given a lot of praise.
It
Is
is.
it deserving of the praise that it gets?
Personally, I'm going to say yes with this one.
Yeah, I'd
Okay.
say so.
Because I'm not a contrarian in any way. So if I believe something to be true, I would say so.
Even a broken clock is right twice a day.
Exactly.
You know.
But Link to the Past, it's amazing. Again,
It is,
one of my favourite childhood
absolutely.
games.
Absolutely. Link to the Past is like arguably the quintessential Zelda game next to Ocarina of Time.
And it was so good as well that it was endorsed in advertisements on television by Rick Mail himself. So it must be good.
Yeah.
I don't remember the Link to the Past Rick Mail.
I've seen.
He was doing loads of Nintendo adverts.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of Rick Mail Nintendo.
He endorsed the next one in the series as well, Link's Awakening on the Game Boy again. I think it's absolutely fantastic for an early Game Boy game. Very deep.
They did well on the Game Boy ones, I must say. The amount they managed to fit onto that cartridge is very impressive.
That's the point, actually. Like, Link's Awakening is another league altogether from the two games that were on the NES. A completely different league, yet it's using weaker hardware, which is amazing when you think about it.
Yeah. No, it's actually very, very impressive.
It is. It's huge. Apparently, the original intention was to make a direct port of Link to the Past on the Game Boy.
Okay.
And as development, it just morphed into a game in its own right.
That's really cool.
Great.
That's interesting way of doing things.
Great game. Great game.
I mean, what's the next thing that we need to talk about here? What's the next?
Oh,
game?
we could continue. Oh, the next one in the series. We're going to ignore all the Satellaview games and all stuff like that.
Are we going to ignore the CDI ones for the same reasons?
We've talked about them last week, so we won't retread the same ground.
Thank God for that.
After that, yes, they do deserve more airtime.
Shush.
Okay.
Carry on.
Ocarina of Time.
Ocarina. Okay. Ocarina was massive. This is the only Zelda game up to this point that I've actually bothered to complete.
Ooh.
Before that, they never really caught my eye. It was never something that I was particularly interested in, probably because of my age.
Yes,
maybe.
I'd agree with that. Most likely.
It was probably a little bit too technical for me at that time.
Yeah.
As we've been through on the channel before, I spent more of my time playing outside than playing on game consoles.
No.
See, I've got a little anecdote regarding the Ocarina of Time. I got it for Christmas when I was 12 years old, but it wasn't presented to me on my pile of presents. I had this huge pile of presents. I opened them all up, and then there was no Ocarina of Time amongst it all. So despite the fact that I got given a ridiculous amount of presents and loads of Nintendo 64 games, I then threw a massive strop on Christmas Day. Like, where's my Ocarina of Time? You've got me all this stuff, and the main thing I want is Ocarina of Time, you've not got it. And the truth was they put it to one side because they wanted to surprise me.
Sound like a horrible, horrible child.
To be fair, it's exactly the same as what happens now.
Yeah, I was going to say, you've never grown out of that.
No.
I mean, wow. That's honestly, the first time I got a brand new console for Christmas was PlayStation 2.
But the thing was,
I grew up pretty poor. So if I threw a bitch fit because I didn't get the game that I wanted, but despite the fact I got a shit ton of other games.
Because logically, it didn't make any sense. Why would they spend all that money getting me all these different games, but not get me the one I want?
Logically, it makes no sense. They're trying to do a nice thing, but they're not. They're annoying me.
Yeah, I didn't know that, though, did I? I thought they were just being dense or something.
This story would be considerably funnier if they hadn't have got you the game and it was just a sad story about how you had to go at your parents. And yeah, they were just stupid and they didn't get you what you wanted. To be fair, you do act exactly the same way when you don't get things now.
Yes, I do. If I don't get enough views on a video, you've seen what I do.
So, Ocarina of Time, we need to go for the underrated, overrated, or bang on exactly where it should be.
I think it varies from person to person with that one. I think there's a lot of people who literally look at it as the greatest game what's ever made.
I don't think it's the greatest game ever made.
Yeah.
I do, but it's probably the best 64 game. Probably.
I think there's a good case for it, definitely. I'll agree with that.
And as for sheer fun, like honestly, for fun, which is what I think a Zelda game should be all about. So the 1 and 2, I think, are so obscure and cryptic that they can venture from fun into annoying. Link to the Past, sorry, had more fun, but could be quite annoying at points where you're like, I can't remember what to do. This is actually killing me.
Yeah.
Ocarina of Time, even if you can't remember what to do, it's just traversing the world is fun. Battling the enemies is fun. Finding the items is a really.
So, do you think,
just fun.
with its place in
Super
history,
fun.
is it overrated or underrated or smack bang?
I think it's smack on because it is so many people's favourite game that it's done good for the series and it's done good for gaming because Zelda is a pop culture icon as well.
Moving on from there, we obviously got, if we're talking in terms of games consoles, we got Majora's Mask. What did you think of that one?
Majora's Mask.
Yes, it's Silent J.
Well, we've got
I didn't enjoy it as much as Ocarina.
it wasn't as good. It felt like half of a game.
Yeah, the darkness was cool, like that
Yeah.
kind of more
Do
adulty.
you boys know the history of that game?
I know some of it, but you're going to tell us
Yeah.
anyway.
If you want.
Can we have the quick version?
Yes, it was originally going to be an expansion pack on the Nintendo 64 Disco Drive, but obviously resisted it itself very well and it ended up moving into a full-blown sequel.
Which is probably why it feels like half a game.
Yes, exactly.
Which would make a lot of sense.
Yes.
I think it feels like half a game. It's very good. One of the best things about Ocarina of Time, and the reason I think it pushes over a lot of the other games, such as Banjo games, Mario 64, and Conquer even, is that the controls were better. The camera was better.
What, than Ocarina? Or
No,
it's
Ocarina was better, by far. And I think that pushes it kind of over those games. Majora's Mask did the same thing. The controls were very tight. The camera was tight. So it has to be up there.
I absolutely hated it when I came out. I despised it because I was expecting something similar to Ocarina of Time, and then I got something completely different. It looked the same, but it was a very different beast. But it was during the era of Pokemania, brother. So anything that wasn't Pokemon wasn't as quite entertaining. That was the crack I felt I needed over that time period.
I actually feel like graphics is one area that Majora's Mask is probably superior to Ocarina of Time. I think graphically, actually, it's a little bit cleaner, it's a little bit crisper, it's a little bit more colourful and imaginative in its colour choices and its design features. I think that's one area that it maybe trumps Ocarina. Music, and again, that fun aspect is all owned by Ocarina out of the two.
The problem is with that game, it's doing what it intended to do, but at the same time it's very annoying. It makes you feel on edge the entire time you're playing because of that stupid...
I don't like that mechanic.
That mechanic with
I
the
don't
72
like it.
hours, it's really annoying.
I don't like it.
And they put the exact same problem in Final Fantasy 13 free. Have you played that before?
No, because I've heard nothing but bad things
It's got the
about
Majora's
13.
Mask mechanic in that as well. So, yes. So it took me many, many years to make my way round to actually playing Majora's Mask all the way through. So I would say it's overrated, if anything. It's kind of one of those cult classics, like... I suppose it's a bit like Freddy Got Fingered, isn't it, in a way?
We're not talking about that anymore.
You sure?
Yes.
Okay, we'll move on.
That was my phone for a change.
So, you had the Game Boy Color games after that by Capcom, which was the Oracle games, Oracle of Seasons and Oracle of Ages.
Never actually played these, so this is all on you.
Well, IGN gave them 10 out of 10 for some ridiculous
Well, we
reason.
all know how you feel about 10 out of 10s.
Yes, they're far from perfect games, so I find that score quite offensive, to be honest. They pretty much felt like ROM hacks to me of Link's Awakening. They didn't do a lot new. It was like literally the same game, just with different dungeons and a different overworld, but graphically identical.
Okay.
I think you suffer from that though when you release games in certain like generations of that game. They're essentially palette swaps, aren't they?
Yeah.
They all use like the same mechanics and.
But it was developed by different people. One was made by Nintendo, one was made by Capcom, and one was on the Game Boy Color, one was on the original Game Boy. So there wasn't much of an excuse for that. They
should have
something different.
No, unless Nintendo made the engine in house and just shifted it over to them.
That has to have happened because it literally is identical, really. So not much to say about that. No originality there. So from there, we got the GameCube with Wind Waker.
Okay.
Which you've been playing,
I've been playing today. I've been
Yeah.
playing on the Wii U. I've been playing the HD.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll go in the middle because I have a feeling I know how this conversation is going to go. How do you feel about the Wind Waker Orb?
Too short,
Mm-hmm.
but it's made arbitrarily long
Mm-hmm.
by the seafaring and that Tingle quest where you got to get the maps translated.
Okay.
Other than that, I like its visuals. I like the music.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's got a good amount of fun to it. It's got some cool little mechanics. The opening is a bit slow.
Okay.
But it's a good Zelda game. It is a good game. I don't think it reaches that Ocarina level.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it looks stunning. I think it's the best looking Zelda game that's ever been made. And which... It was quite amusing at the time. I don't know if you two are old enough to remember, but around the time that was released, there were so many people going, "Ree, this isn't how Zelda looks. We want it to be dark. We want it to be edgy. What are you doing? We don't like cartooniness. It's too childish." There was a lot of people like, "Yes, you've got a question."
No, that's not a question. It's I was one of those people.
You was one of those
not
people.
quite like that. I didn't think like, oh, it needs to be darker. I didn't mind about the fact that it was a bit more bright and stuff like this. But to me, I didn't like the graphics. I do not like cel shaded graphics in games.
I love
I
them.
think there's a time and a place for them, but I didn't think that the Zelda series needed a shift that way, personally, which made me refuse to play it.
I think it's a great game. I do not think it's in the same league as the Ocarina of Time in any way, shape, or form, or Link to the Past. The game is just not of that standard in terms of gameplay, length, anything really. However, something that really annoys me, and this is why I put it in the overrated category, you've got all those weirdos who are probably around 23, 25, and they all claim that the GameCube's the greatest platform of all time, and like they say, oh, Double Dash is the best ever Mario Kart game, Mario Sunshine's the best ever Mario game, and Wind Waker's the best ever Zelda game. I hate them people because they've got nostalgia goggles on and they need them removed from their ugly little faces.
I do agree with that. However, they might have a point about Double Dash. Possibly.
It's my least favourite Mario Kart game.
No way, I think the original was mine. Like, nowadays.
Yeah, alright, yeah, no, I'm going to
Nowadays,
give you that.
Yeah.
Nowadays.
You know what I mean? But the Mario Sunshine argument is ludicrous.
It is
Yeah,
ludicrous.
Sunshine's
It's
awful.
absolutely ridiculous.
Sunshine's awful.
They are. That is being a contrarian almost.
But even
it's great to change up the styles of things because that's great for Mario. Mario's always done that. It's always changed up the mechanics. I think they changed it up too much with Sunshine and screwed it up.
It's Mario Council Worker Edition.
Yeah.
You clean up graffiti.
I personally think you're being a contrarian as well if someone tries to claim that the GameCube was better than the PlayStation 2 in any way. What's wrong with your brain?
I think that's very different. It's not a comparison I would make, but even if you forced me to make that comparison, then yeah, I don't see how the GameCube wins.
So how can anyone claim it's the greatest console of all time?
Yeah,
that's really mental, isn't it?
Yeah, that's crazy.
It didn't have the length or breadth of games that
many other Nintendo consoles or anything was around.
Games, really good games.
Yeah.
But it wasn't even the greatest Nintendo platform around at the time because the Game Boy Advance was far superior to it.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay, I could probably buy that.
What, the handheld 64 you mean?
But the Game Boy Advance it wasn't really. It's not more of a handheld SNES with DLC.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough, yeah. Handheld SNES.
So we need to move on quite quickly, and this is going to be our talk point all the way through now.
Yeah,
We've got
it
7
looks like
minutes left today.
how long have we got? No, sorry, 7 minutes left, you just said that.
I'm going to cover the main
What's
Zelda
next?
game, so we will say Twilight Princess next.
Right, this is why I don't rate Wind Waker as highly as I should, because Twilight Princess is obviously designed for the GameCube, and then the Wii was coming out, so they kind of held off on it a bit, and then added on and tacked on some weird motion control to be like, look at the wand. But the GameCube version of Twilight Princess is one of the best Zelda games, in my opinion.
I would agree with you. I think it's underrated, Twilight Princess.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about... I didn't play it on the GameCube, but I did get some experience with it on the Wii.
That's what I mainly played it on.
And we're going back to this forced motion controls argument that comes up all the time again. Bolting on motion controls to make something motion controls is... I mean, some games would work. Specific archery games, for example.
Yeah, the
great,
crossbow trainer.
sure. Crossbow trainer, brilliant, yeah. That's what it's designed to do.
The WarioWare game.
WarioWare games, again, it's what it's designed to do. Brilliant. You've designed a game for a system. You haven't designed the game and then gone, actually, this system can do this. We'll throw that in there, and there. And then, you have to do it. So
there's some element regarding that game. I'm not sure whether I like or dislike, a little bit of both.
Okay.
It's the fact that Nintendo, they buckled into fanboyism and made it a dark, edgy Zelda game because everyone was crying about Wind Waker. But at the same time, should you be doing what your audience wants?
yes.
Arguably,
I think to an extent,
so.
yes.
Arguably so.
Yeah.
I think it was a natural progression because Zelda, they made a big statement by doing Wind Waker the way they did. They went, look, we're going to change the game. We're going to do something different. And they got some significant kit back. So they're not going to stick with something because Nintendo are all about that money,
Graphically, though.
And then they changed it to a darker one. And I think they reap the benefits. It's a fantastic game.
Although I think it looked a lot uglier today than Wind Waker. The site being a lot newer. Graphically doesn't look in its league.
I would 100% agree with you. Cel shaded graphics do not age.
No.
Generally. But it's because they don't look real.
It looked cartoony, and
Cartoons don't age.
So I would say, in terms of the Zelda narrative overall, I would classify the game as underrated, because you don't often hear people say that's the greatest Zelda game ever, and it's arguably better than Wind Waker. It doesn't look better, but it certainly plays better. Would you agree with that?
Well, I think it plays better than Wind Waker.
Yeah, me too.
I think it does.
I think it's got a better soundtrack as well.
Soundtrack's better, story's better.
Was that was the last Zelda game released, wasn't it?
No, we've had a few since
Okay, what
Twilight
was left?
Princess. We got on the Game Boy Advance. We got Minish Cap.
Main ones.
Minish Cap.
Yeah,
Minish Cap. We'll talk about Minish Cap quickly.
Okay.
Minish Cap had an interesting mechanic. It was decent.
It feels very small. It feels like a very small game, but at the same time, it was nice to get a brand new Zelda game on a handheld, like with new graphics, new everything. So I would say overall, it's underrated because I still do not believe that many people have actually got round to playing that one.
I haven't played it. I'd probably go for underrated based on outside opinion.
Moving forward, I believe we will go straight to the end of the Wii's life cycle. We got Skyward Sword.
Never played it.
And you've done the right thing.
Is it that bad?
I've heard.
It's horrible. But it got
I remember you playing it at the time, actually.
This is what I mean. It's the definition of an overrated game because IGN, for some reason, gave it 10 out of 10.
Whoa.
Despite the controls barely functioning. It's got motion controls that don't even work properly. Like, how can you give a game a perfect score where you don't even try? It makes you wonder, did they even review it or did someone sit them down and play it for about half an hour and then give it 10 out of 10? Just because it's a Zelda game and people want to see a Zelda game get 10 out of 10.
Probably gaggled
There's lots of IGN stuff that we could go into. Maybe we'll save that for next time.
Yeah, but I personally think it's a horrible game which controls bad. Although I do like the characters in it. There's an amazing character in it called Groose, and it's basically...
We're down to 2 minutes.
Yes, we keep talking. We might run a few minutes over because this is worth talking about.
Okay.
Groose is the best Zelda character ever. It's basically if you got Biff from Back to the Future and you stuck him in the middle of a Zelda game between Princess Zelda and Mario. He looks like him, he acts like him. He's literally Biff. But in Zelda, I don't know why he's not in Smash yet because Groose is perhaps one of the greatest Zelda characters of all time, except for the King in the CDI game.
Excellent. No, that actually does sound appealing. I am annoyed that I haven't experienced Groose.
Groose is so good.
Maybe that is something that is worth a stream at some point.
So, following on from Skyward Sword, we have Breath of the Wild.
There are, but are we going to touch on the DS and the 3DS games?
Actually, the only one of the DS ones that I've played that I can possibly comment on is it not Phantom Hourglass, the Spirit Tracks?
They're very similar games.
Yeah.
They have similar mechanics.
I didn't like it.
One's a sequel to the next, and no, I don't like them either. But for some reason, I believe IGN gave them 9.5 out of 10.
Jesus.
What?
This is going to be another talk point.
This is what I'm talking about, the overratedness of the
100%.
Zelda franchise. There are some amazing Zelda games, but there are some extremely average ones. But despite the fact they're completely average, completely forgettable, they still get near perfect scores. Why is this happening?
We will talk about this another time. This is going to be our next talk point on our next episode of Top Hat Chat.
Okay. We got another handheld entry after that. We got Link Between Worlds, the sequel
worth talking about.
Sequel to Link to the Past.
Okay.
I enjoyed it from what I played.
Again, this is over my head. I can't really comment.
I really enjoyed
didn't
it.
like one major thing.
The graphics, maybe?
No, graphics were fine. I didn't like the almost open world style, do the dungeons in any order you want and you rent the items out deal. I didn't like that.
That sounds crap.
I think it was unnecessary. I think it's kind of playing to that point of making gaming more accessible when they really mean dumbing it down.
Like what they've done with the Pokemon games.
Yes,
where
exactly.
They're even more self-explanatory than the originals.
Yes, exactly.
Which doesn't make any... You'd think there'd be a way to turn that off, actually. Because if you've been playing Pokemon for 20 years already, why are they explaining it in more detail than they've ever needed to do before? Are they insinuating that children have got stupider over the years? Because I do not recall ever having any problem learning the mechanics of Pokemon.
No.
Yeah, no, I agree.
It... what's it called again, sorry? Link Between Worlds.
Yes.
Link Between Worlds is a good game.
Yeah, I love it.
Despite that.
Although I do not like the graphical style. It's that tacky, cheap 3D look. The same as the remake of Secret of Mana. That's got that horrible look as well. And the new Super Mario Brothers games. I think those sort of games look soulless. They're ugly, I think.
So are we done now?
No, one more.
One more.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, Breath of the Wild.
That doesn't count.
Why? Is it not a Zelda game?
No, it's Skyrim Zelda edition. Like
I've never played it. I've only watched Garfolk, a friend of mine play it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why haven't you played it? You've got a Wii U, haven't you?
I have a Wii U.
You need to play it.
So
then.
I saw it for sale today.
Rich will lend it to you.
I've got a copy on the Wii U.
I might play it. Is it better on the Wii U than it is on the Switch?
I
the
would
same.
assume so, because obviously it's a port on the Switch, isn't it? It's just a crappy port.
It's the same.
Is it actually a port?
But it's got to be a port. It's the equivalent of that when you got
is that
the
same
GameCube
as-
thing with
yeah.
Twilight Princess. It's the
Okay.
same deal.
It looks fun.
There are
It looks
aspects of
fun.
it that are fun. Try and 100% it.
Garfolk said an interesting thing. There's like 120 of those shrines, isn't there?
Yeah.
To do. I saw those shrines. Why? They're like training VR rooms.
I've done all of them.
Cut out 40, 50 of those and add 3-4 dungeons.
Exactly.
There are dungeons.
It all looks the same.
The dungeons aren't hard. They're not challenging. The boss fights aren't challenging. They're surprisingly. Did you find this as well? Or was it just me that found them really easy? I found the boss
I
fights
can't
easy.
even remember the game. To me, it was that unmemorable. It was just this big, boring, empty, open world, and everything looked the same. The world looked the same. The dungeons looked the same. To me, it was the most uninspiring big Zelda game of all time. I absolutely hate it.
Yeah, it had some good aspects. I think that it was drawn out. Again, it wasn't hard enough for me. I haven't had any experience in Zelda games in quite a while, as you've just found out. Ocarina and Majora's Mask were like my last Zelda games that I really, really got into. And I didn't find it challenging at all. Apart from the tediousness of running around trying to find all 120 shrines.
I just can't stand these big sandbox games in general. It's AAA tripe. All these Skyrim style games, they're boring. Yeah.
Alright. Sandbox games, by definition, aren't boring because there are a lot of good ones. What they have done is they now see sandbox as a genre instead of a design option.
Yeah.
It used to
Fair
be
enough.
you have an open world, a sandbox kind of game, but you have a story created and crafted in it that you follow along and you explore the city as you go along on the story.
Although
Some games offer you complete freedom and it works because they're exploring games. But Zelda is not meant to be that sort of exploring game. You have a very specific mission and task. You know where you're supposed to go. It shouldn't involve that much free roam.
There are a few open world games I have really enjoyed. Like, I really loved GTA 5. I thought that was amazing. And I also loved the Borderland games as well.
I was going to
Borderlands
say,
is great.
I know you love Borderlands.
Borderlands is great.
So to say I hate all sandbox
again,
games is a
Borderlands.
generalisation.
When I say I hate cel-shaded graphics games, as a generalisation, I suppose it's unfair because Borderlands is great.
Oh, so Borderlands is one of the
But
best looking
it
games.
really suits the game. I didn't think that cel-shaded suited Zelda. I didn't see the connection. I didn't see the link. Borderlands, I think, looks like it should use that kind of thing.
I think that would be a good talking point one day. Is Borderlands underrated?
Do you think it is in the grand scheme of things?
I think it is in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, I think it's
There's
very
many
rare.
reasons why I think that.
Borderlands might be a good game to stream at some point if we're going to go a little bit newer, maybe a midweek when we get around
That
to
would
doing
be
some
fun.
of those.
Borderlands 1 would be fun.
Yeah.
In fact, I've just realised there is a Zelda game we have completely forgotten to talk about. We have not talked about Zelda Four Swords Adventure whatsoever.
Oh,
Ooh.
yeah, no, but we did do that kind of on purpose because that is what we're about to go on to
Exactly.
play now.
Ah.
We are about to go live on Twitch. Straight after this is like a pre-show for our main show. On Twitch, we are going to be playing for the next probably 5 hours.
I don't know how long it
Ish.
is. I can't remember.
Something like that. Zelda Four Swords Adventures on the Nintendo GameCube. The 3-player version. We
need
have
to
got
show
all the
these
cables that we need. We have numerous... don't pull them too hard. We have numerous cables that we've purchased throughout the week. And that is what we're about to do now. So, if you would like to come over and find us, that is twitch.tv/Top Hat Chat. We're going over there right now. And we're going to spend the next decent amount of time
Yes,
playing.
we're going to have a full playthrough, however long that takes.
It may take us over 2 streams, but we'll see.
No, we'll do it tonight. Promise. I promise.
Stop promising things.
I don't have to necessarily deliver on promises.
Oh!
Our politicians don't, so we don't have to either.
Okay.
Cheerio!